Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Bowes, Executive Director of the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative. And we're a not-for-profit organization. And we're here to discuss reconnecting with nature. And this discussion is sponsored by the Legacy Foundation of Lake County under a grant from the Knight Foundation. And I'm always curious about where the grants come from, because I spend part of the spring writing grants. So, and the Knight Foundation, I think this is the third year that they've funded on the table discussions. And we have someone here from the Legacy Foundation, Jody, and she can tell you how well that's been going along. You've been here all 3 years, Jody?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're here to discuss reconnecting with nature, and one of the reasons why I wanted the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative to host this discussion is because on November 1st we're having an all-day meeting featuring state, local, and federal agencies, representatives of those agencies here, and hopefully some educators, science teachers, and maybe a few students thrown in, and so I thought having discussions in advance of that would be we could show at the November 1st meeting, and so this is being videotaped. And I assume that everyone agrees to have this videotape. And I always wonder about having discussions videotaped, because there's some people that may not like to have their picture taken. So I want to start off with going around the table and having everyone introduce yourselves, and then you can also explain why you're here. And so we'll start with Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I'm here because, well, I've loved nature ever since I was a little kid, and nowadays I feel like, well, unfortunately, a lot of nature is being taken away from us, and the environment, well, not to sound pessimistic, but unfortunately the way it is that our planet isn't in great shape, and I want to figure out how to reconnect with nature, not only for myself, because I love nature and it's relaxing, but for the entire planet. Okay.
I'm Jody, and I actually work for Legacy Foundation. I'm their scholarship administrator. And we choose to go to various conversations just to kind of check in and see how things are going. And I chose this one kind of for two reasons. One, I was able to participate last year here at this college, and so I thought it would be fun to do it a second year. And then also, you know, I am a transplant to this area. I moved here from California, where I feel like I had a deeper kind of connection with nature. I have a 7-year-old who's in the Cub Scouts. And so I'm actively trying to find ways to connect with nature out here, and I think it's important, and kind of echoing what you had said with the environment and the crisis that we're having. So it's an important time to be talking about these things.
Okay, Wayne Schimpf. I represent the Hornaday Conservation Award Committee and the Conservation Committee of the Pathway to Adventure Boy Scout Council that includes Lake and Porter counties in Indiana, and Cook, Will, and DuPage counties in Illinois. I've been out connecting with nature since I took my first Reading the Landscape course from May Thielgard Watts, who was a student at the University of Chicago, Dr. Henry Chandler Coles, who was the father of North American ecology at the Indiana Dunes. Previously, one of my hats I've worn is I was the first ranger naturalist to work at the Indiana Dunes National Lake Shore. And so I'm interested in new efforts in that, and new areas to assist with using usable resources of the various programs that the Boy Scouts of America have, and here to help facilitate the use of existing resources to, as Abby said, get more youth connected to the natural resource base of the region.
I'm Richard Chambers. I was an intern for Ollie back when I was an MBA student and last year, and I've been helping out with things as they arrange this event. So I decided to come and see if there any final things that they needed help with. But while I'm here, I'm just interested in the discussion. We've been talking for a couple of years about the projects that Allie has envisioned for the region and the Wolf Lake vision, and I'm interested in how those move forward at this point.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm a member of OLLI and a retired teacher. And I'm here because, first of all, I'm concerned with the overall problems of climate change. But also I've been thinking about the way different people connect with nature, not in the typical ways like hiking and biking, but people like me who I'm not particularly outdoorsy, but there are different ways that we can connect with nature as well.
I'm Pat Hansen, retired teacher and an artist, and because I am an artist, the environment is very important to me, and I'm interested in nature and always have been, and most of my paintings are about very little still life or interiors. So I'm also a member of the Little Calumet River Underground Railroad Committee and Calumet Heritage Partnership.
I'm Valerie Penniman, and I teach history here at Calumet College, and I also happen to be Abby's mother, which is something I'm very proud of. I too have loved nature since I was a very little girl, and one of the things I'm proudest of in life is that my husband and I raised 2 children who grew up to be very, very nature-loving and connected to the environment. People who understand, and I think it's so important to convey this to the younger generations, who understand that we need green space, we need birds, we need seas, unpolluted waters. We need all of these things not only because they're vital to life and to the whole chain of life, but because they're beautiful in and of themselves, and for our mental and spiritual health, we need nature.
Holly?
I'm Holly and Holly Bobbling. Shouldn't I be in botany? Plant and animal kingdom in my family and by name. I've been involved with various organizations over the years that were environmentally conscious. Calumet Ecological Park, which is an old one that tried to preserve certain like wetlands and different significant green space in the area. The Autobahn, Sandridge Autobahn, I was involved with that, and Ollie too. And I'm an advocate of the environment, and I really like it. Like you were saying, it's aesthetic, it's important for the health and the well-being of everyone. But I also have another side. Everybody has a side. I work for a large corporation. I work for Ford Motor Company. So they are very interested in the environment. I mean, you might not think that they are, but they are.
I just might want to add to that, Holly, is that Richard over here was a graduate intern that was funded by the Ford Motor Company.
Yes, I mean, they are interested in the environment. I mean, you might not think of them as that, but they are.
Well, back in 1970, I received the Ford Foundation grant is one of 30 environmental fellows in the United States to help evolve what environmental education would become at the southern tip of Lake Michigan. So, yes, Ford Foundation has a very good environmental interest record. Henry would be very proud of it.
And so, Wayne, you've been doing this for so many years.
Yes.
How would you compare what we're doing today with what was being done when you first started out?
Well, it's you've got the spark plugs of interest here that want to go and grow opportunities for others to experience nature in the local resources here. So I think it's just a matter of taking this interest that the people have, looking at the resources and scheduling activities so that they can learn from in and about, the resources. And then you want to, partner up. I've worked with the Legacy Foundation here, being formerly on the board of the Environmental Learning Center over at the Dunes National Lakeshore, so I'm familiar with their work and that. So, and then our artists here and his history people and so on, it's all part of activities to get the people more conscious about, the outdoors and wanting to, experience it and, to bring the youth along with it and so on. So, and I hate to see, new things spend time developing when there's a lot that exists here, and that's why I'm, very interested in partnering with the Boy Scouts, because we've got a very age-appropriate opportunities and so on like that. So, so I'm hoping that your interest in that can motivate some other youth and parents in that want to plan more of their own adventures. Scouting gives an opportunity for people to plan their own adventures. So hopefully it'll be a mutualistic relationship.
And I would like to know from each of you, perhaps, is what activities is your favorite activity that involves nature. And I'll start out with myself. One of the most comfortable feelings I get is when I can go out by myself and just hike or walk by a lake, and just kind of it just gives me a good feeling to do that, and it can be anywhere. But I am very fortunate to live right by the Burnham Greenway, which the biking and hiking trail, and I use that just about every day on my bike. So I don't have to be just walking, but also cycling. So, but I like to hear what everybody else does, their favorite activity, and so that can start anywhere.
I come from a long line of, I want to call them northern people, and my dad was from UP, from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and so I have snow in my blood, and I love cross-country skiing.
All right. So I actually also just love hiking or walking along a path with a lot of nature. I would say for me particularly forest. There was a forest a field and a forest that was in my old neighborhood. Unfortunately, they might be tearing it down soon.
Aww.
And for an extension for the South Shoreline.
Aww.
And I mean, that makes me kind of sad because I spent a lot of my childhood walking and playing in that field and in the forest. The closest thing that we have to our new place is it's called the Erie Lackawanna Trail, right? Yeah, and it has sort of a wooded area, so I mean that is really nice. I especially like walking my dog over there.
Kind of the same thing. I am fortunate to live in Hobart, and I think that they've really been doing a great job with their parks department. And so I have a dog and a 7-year-old, and I happen to live close to Lake George as well as Fred Rose Park. And so every day, we're able to go on the trails and walk the dog, and either ride our bikes or scooters. So that's kind of my daily activity out in nature. And my son loves flowers, and so it's not necessarily nature, but we have a wonderful garden because he's obsessed with flowers. So
That's nice.
yeah, so we spend a lot of time gardening.
Well, my thing that I like to do is practice my slogan that I developed, let the power of the flower do the teaching. And I like to, get out and especially come down to the dunes here and hike the successional trails that go up and down the dunes to Lake Michigan and discover the different types of plants and so on that are doing their thing at the various seasons of the year. So it's, again, getting out and experiencing the power of the flower that it has on you.
Right now, my favorite thing to do out in nature is just, go for a walk, go hiking. Around here, I like to go walking. I walked around, the Wolf Lake area before, and when there were more. I haven't had a whole lot of time to do more serious hikes, but I did a short one in around the Smoky Mountains area, and also when I was a few weeks ago, I had a vacation in Panama, and there's actually a rainforest national park on the outskirts of the city, so we were doing a short hike there. That was really, really fun, and you got to see more of the small animals, the ants that are kind of different there. They have farmer ants, which were very interesting. The way they took leaves from way up in trees and came down with them. But I hope sometime I get a chance to do more paddling, because I was one of the main grant writers for Calumet City's Economic Development Department on their. They're trying to get grant money for a canoe launch over by the River Oaks Mall, and having heard so much about canoeing and learned about it, I really think it sounds interesting. So I hope I get a chance soon to try it out.
Well, as I said, I've never been particularly outdoorsy, and I had opportunities as a child. I had a bicycle, as most kids do, and I just sort of remember riding it around the block until I got tired. Never went on any big adventures. We always had a backyard swimming pool, but I never really took to swimming. I was afraid to open my eyes underwater. I was one of those kids that liked to stay in and read a book and practice the piano. So it took a while to come to something that I really enjoyed, and that turned out to be gardening. I had a next door neighbor who was a fabulous gardener, and she was very patient and taught me a lot of wonderful things, and I've had a garden all my life to this day.
As a child, I was born and raised in Chicago on the south side. There were a lot of prairies, and we used to play in the prairies a lot. All kinds of animals and whatever was there, snakes and worms, and never afraid of them. And so I'm an outside person, and to this day, I walk every morning a mile, winter, summer, spring, and fall. Doesn't matter, I still walk. It's only a mile, and some people say, "Oh, only a mile." I used to walk by. Used to. That's the key word. There we go. But I'm still walking after 35 years, and when I was teaching, I just got up early in the morning and walked, because I read somewhere that if you walk in the morning you're more apt to keep it up because, see, as the day goes on, you get busy. Oh, I got a meeting tonight, or I'm too tired, I didn't sleep well. Go out early if you want to walk and keep going. And I have something to show all of you right now. It's intriguing to me. I was working around my house, and I came upon a cocoon. A large cocoon. Here it is. I'm going to pass it around. Everybody can see it. And so I thought, holy smokes, what the heck? And I started to investigate. This thing is 2 inches long, and 1 inch wide. That is not something I've ever seen before. And so I did a lot of investigation, and from what I understand, and I also went to Sandridge Nature Center. I live very close to Sandridge Nature Center. And they said, yeah, you're right. Maybe they still want to bother with me, I don't know. But anyway, I think it is a giant silkworm moth. And I'm going to pass this around so everybody can see it. Now this is the caterpillar. And this is what the cocoon looks like. And they do winter over in the cocoon. And when they come out in the spring, they can be 5 inches across. So that would be as big as your hand. So this is an exciting adventure. I just said, oh my God, I've lived in that house. I've never seen anything like this. And true, they're not the usual thing, you know? Has anybody else ever seen a giant silkworm moth cocoon?
No, but now I'm going to look out for them.
So I'm going to pass it around.
I know.
If you have one, there's more.
Anyway, that's what was keeping me busy for a couple weeks and tried to find out. I absolutely want a positive identification. I contacted an entomologist at the Peggy Milfart Museum in Chicago, and he said, I don't know. I thought, well, they should fire this guy. I mean, if he doesn't know what that is, come on. He didn't want to be bothered. What do you think? Huh?
What kind of plant is it?
Pardon?
It's on what type of plant?
It wasn't on a plant.
What was it on?
I have a tri-level. At the lower level, the windows are on the patio.
Okay.
And it was on top of the window.
Okay.
You know, this big thing like this.
Huh.
Oh my God, what is that? So, yeah. We'll see if it comes out next spring. I hope it does.
What kind of plants do you have in your yard? Do you have anything that's prolific or?
Any what?
Any plants that are like, I want to say, dominant in your garden?
I have a garden.
I mean, do you have
flowers,
anything that's like?
but not where that is. And I certainly, from what I understand, when I did my research on them, it said that they usually will either build a cocoon in a tree, or in some weeds or something. So it's unusual that it decided to come to my house, but whatever.
Because they usually have a host plant. That's on. It's on a windowsill, so it doesn't have a host plant.
No,
That's
giant silkworm moth is not like a milkweed plant. It doesn't.
Okay, yeah.
Although, truthfully, you're right. I think it is the mulberry tree that.
Yes.
There you go.
Correct.
Yes, mulberry.
The mulberry tree. That
Because
most
that's
of
what they feed.
I
that's
have
what
no
they feed the
mulberry
silkworms.
trees.
That's the food for the silkworms in China.
Okay.
Or the mulberry.
I think you're right. Yeah, because
That is
I
correct.
read that in my research. I read so much I don't remember it all, but
That
it
is-
was a lot.
That's what they use. They do feed them that.
Valerie? Yeah.
Well, as Abby said, our family now lives pretty close to the Erie-Lackawanna Trail. It's just about a block and a half down the street. And we love walking there. Usually we're walking our dog, and he goes pretty fast, so we don't really get a chance to stop and smell things, but he stops and smells things. Sometimes my husband and I will go out there to walk just on our own. And whenever we've taken a family vacation through the years, and now my husband and I sometimes will go away for a weekend or a slightly longer time away. And wherever we go, every trip that we take, we always include some time in nature. It's very special to both of us. So several years ago, for our wedding anniversary in October, we took just a day or so away, one night in a hotel, but we went to what was then called the Tall Tree Arboretum. And another year we went to Michigan City and sat on the beach, which is a very lovely place to be in October. You don't have the big crowds, you don't have the blistering heat, but it has a special beauty of its own, the water at that time of year. So we've always made it just something that we love to do, and so it's a priority we always plan for.
I love your earrings, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Just what you do, get your favorite.
Oh, yeah, I cross-country skate, but I like all these other things too. But
Okay.
you asked for me the favorite. That's what I like to do the best.
Okay.
But I like these other things, the gardening and that, and I do walk, I do walk.
I do.
And I do like the nature too, so.
I do want to follow up on something that Mary said about seniors. And did you want to add on that? Because seniors, as Pat noted, are limited. That 5-mile run is a 1-mile walk.
Well, I was thinking about different categories of people who are not typically thought of as being interactive with nature, and some, by reasons of choice, others by ability. Seniors, I think maybe as their abilities wane, they have to find new ways to connect with nature. And I don't know the answer to this, but I just wonder what like nursing homes and assisted living places do. Even rehabilitation centers, or even people with disabilities. Maybe, I don't know if there are any Boy Scouts who have disabilities. If you have, what do you do for people like that? Are there special accommodations, or?
Well, there's a regular accommodations program, whether it's a visible or an internal disability that limits them from learning in the standard way. But even though a person has a disability, it doesn't mean that they can't learn, that they learn differently. And so then you have to become aware of this, but again, interacting with the rhythms and the symmetry and so on of nature and so on like that is a soothing thing for any mind, regardless of how the input process and the physical limitations of getting to it. So it's just a matter of structuring the activity so that the person can have the appropriate encounter regardless of the age and that. So it's just making opportunities for people to say no to something and yes to Mother Nature's bountiful activity smorgasbord that we have to choose to provide.
Abby, you remember in the assisted living place where Aunt Laura, Abby's great aunt, lived before she died, there was a big picture window in the dining room.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it looked out on the woods, and Aunt Laura mentioned that she'd seen a bear go through.
Oh,
yes. Then you're really glad you're inside.
Where is she living?
It was in northern Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
There were a couple of deer there too, right? That we saw.
Yeah, that's right.
I brought a little excerpt from a book. I haven't read it yet, but it's called The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating, and it's described as a remarkable chronicle of a bedridden woman's life with a wild snail as her companion. Apparently she was still a fairly young woman, but at a time in her life she was bedridden for a while. And I think the snail was in a potted plant by her bedside, but she wrote a whole book about how this little tiny snail was such a comfort to her in her solitude. And she wrote, by day the strangeness of my situation was sharpest. I was bedbound at a time when my friends and peers were moving forward in their careers and raising families. Yet the snail's daytime sleeping habits gave me a fresh perspective. I was not the only one resting away the days. The snail naturally slept by day, even on the sunniest of afternoons. Its companionship was a comfort to me and buffered my feelings of uselessness. In the evenings, there was a short but satisfying time when I knew the rest of the human world would join me, if just for the night, in my recumbent lifestyle. When healthy people take to their beds, they sink deeply into a privileged sleep. But with my illness, sleep was diaphanous and often non-existent. The snail once again came to my rescue. As the world fell into sleep without me, the snail awoke, as if this darkest of times were indeed the best of times in which to live.
Little snail, all about it. Isn't that amusing? Yeah, good. Well, it's almost like me in the mall.
There you go.
So there's nature for everyone, all ages and all physical conditions. So, and I wanted to bring up something too. In preparing for our November 1st meeting, I've been getting information from different organizations. One came from the Field Museum, and they have 3 programs that they work with different schools in the area, and that would be mostly southeast Chicago and northwest Indiana. And the 3 programs, they have Kimby, which is for high school students, I think, and that's Calumet in my backyard is what the acronym refers to. And then they have an Earth Force program, which is, I think, a national program, and that's for junior high, I think. And then for younger grades, they have Mighty Acorns, and I'm very familiar with Mighty Acorns. And it was interesting because I wanted to find out what schools were involved. And so I have a list, and they sent me a list, and I recognized some of the schools, most of them, in fact. There were some that I was not familiar with. But it's interesting because, and I have copies of this if anybody wants them. They list the schools that they work with. And there's one school in Hammond, and I don't recognize any school that is in Whiting, East Chicago, or Gary. The ones in Indiana tend to be in, there's a group of them in Hobart. There's some with the Portage School District, and some through the, they do have one from Gary, the Charter School of the Dunes, which I've worked with in the past as well. But I was just kind of surprised that there were not more schools in Lake County. Hobart's in Lake County, right? So, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools, I think, that are participating in these programs. They're very good programs. And I was just curious as to why, more schools in the area, in the north part of Lake County, were not participating in them. But if anybody wants to, I can pass this around. And if you can correct me, but I just, the only school I saw that from Hammond was from Eggers. And that's a middle, I think that's middle school.
That's good.
So this will be some of the subjects. This will be one of the subjects we'll probably be discussing on November 1st, and hopefully we can have some folks from Hammond and Whiting and East Chicago there to tell me what activities they do. It doesn't necessarily have to be for the Field Museum, but these are just what the types of work the Field Museum does in the area. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing, when I asked about what people are doing today as their activity involving nature, I checked into this. I have just got a book that came out, and I devote one chapter to memories of neighbors of Wolf Lake, George Lake, and Powderhorn Lake, and and in the area. And the pattern of interacting with nature was much different from the 1950s and 1960s. I think we had some memories that went back to the 1940s. And so I've got a pretty good count of what was happening back in the 50s and 60s, and it's nothing like the current electronics age. And so, I'm not blaming the computer for taking people away from nature, but you can certainly take your cell phone along with you on your trips on your hikes and cycling and all that. Because I run into people cycling all the time that are that are distracted by a cell phone. So, but anyway, I just wanted to make that to mention that, because it's so much different than what we're going through now. And one of the big advances is the number of cycling and hiking trails that we have. That is and it's a growing phenomenon, and I think particularly Lake Porter and LaPorte counties are doing a lot of work on connecting with their trails.
One thing, if you're, okay, I see you've got the Simby schools and the Mighty Acorns and that, but I know that the Dunes Learning Center has worked with various, schools in this area, and so that would be another points of contact, and also a lot of high schools and sometimes junior high and elementary school have ecology clubs or green clubs of some kind.
Right.
So they could be inventoried and known, and then also some schools have school gardens. And maybe the Indiana Extension Service, their horticulture people, their 4-H people may be able to give you some other points of contact. So I think that there's again, and then the locations of the scout units, and the one thing nice working with the scouts in that, the scouts also go to school, so you reach, two different types of, audiences, and so you've got a lot of growth potential here. It's just a matter of, looking at, you've got 10 cents worth of time and 10 cents worth of resources. Where do you spend them to get the most people having interactions with the natural resource base of the area?
In fact, could you extend that discussion a little bit more into the Dunes Learning Center, what their program is, because that has a very interesting history to it.
Well, the Dunes Learning Center was actually the brainchild of my mentor, Lee Botts, who grew up in the Hyde Park area, we knew that the birthplace of North American ecology was the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, and to be able to get the children of the region involved with that, being that I was the first naturalist there, the first programming I did was to invite the region's school superintendents and principals and took them through a day-long adventure out in the lakeshore, treating them as curious individuals, and then challenged them to figure out a way that they could, participate their family, but more importantly, the teachers that they had available, and supported it. So then there was then also I offered graduate workshops through the National College of Education, where I was an adjunct professor of environmental studies, and got the teachers more involved with developing knowledge of what's there, developing lesson plans, and using it. So, and then to continue on, there was the old camp, Goodfella Camp, at the park and that, and the cabins from those days were long gone. The lodge just didn't meet safety standards and so on, and so they wanted to create another residential type of experience. So by hook and crook and various National Park Service employees working on their days off and so on, created the Dunes Learning Center. And so I was one of the visionaries that worked with helping develop that. So again, you've got a lot of resources here. It's just a matter of lining the resources up and getting activities on the calendar so people can go and grow, from doing backyard composting to getting on their cell phones. If you want to know something, there is a app that you can put on your phone. You take a picture of whatever it is, and it'll give you the genus, species, and the common name. And then also your citizen science program, so you can get students, if they see a squirrel doing something out in the schoolyard, they can pull up the app, put in what the squirrel's doing, birds, flowers, insects of all kinds. So that's why I'm so excited to see this interest pool, coming, so that more people will be experiencing nature and want more of it.
Yeah, I actually attended Camp Goodfellow when I was in 4th grade.
You did? Okay, yes, yeah.
It was a really great experience.
Well, yeah. Did you stay in the cabins, or?
Yeah, we stayed in the cabins.
Was the swimming pool still working then?
I don't think so. This was 2008, I think.
Well, I don't think you sure it wasn't at the new Environmental Learning Center? Was it in the air-conditioned cabins? Was it the cabins out and you had the dining hall?
Yeah, there was a dining hall.
Well, okay. Then you were, in 08, I think you were, I don't think the Goodfellow program, well, somewhere in there they, stopped the Goodfellow program and then the Dunes Learning Center.
I stayed there in 1968.
Oh, okay,
Wow.
good. So you're, okay, so, well, that was the main thing, that they wanted to keep that gene pool of activity going and so on. And then with Dorothy Buell and the Save the Dunes Council, I sat on the Save the Dunes Council back in the early days and that. So again, that's one of the reasons why I love the area and love the message in that. So hopefully we can get new messengers.
Well, it would be interesting to see how you could engage schools, even just to advertise. So my son has gone to the Dunes Learning camps,
Yes,
2 summers,
yeah.
not sleepaway because he's not old enough,
Okay.
but I mean, he's loved them. But, that's something that I've had to find on my own. I wasn't given information from my school, and the school is Hobart, and they are, I think, as schools go, I mean, they really do try and engage and teach the students about that. But, I kind of hear that there's this area that there isn't that connection. And so I guess also because I do scholarships, so my focus tends to gravitate to school is, how can you develop a partnership with the school so that they're letting their students and parents know there are so many opportunities. I mean, I know this weekend there was the Butterfly Festival in East Chicago, but again, how do you make sure that they're getting the information that there's all of these wonderful programs happening? How do you spread that information? And because I think when people hear about it, they get excited, but I think communication can be hard these days because, like you said, everyone's on your phone. So if they don't like your page, then they may not hear about it. And so, how do you kind of get that word out? And I don't have the answer for that, but I mean, I feel like that's something that could be useful in kind of fostering a new generation of children.
Well, possibly an answer to that would be having an on-the-table
Make it happen, have the people get bragging